Sure.
Good morning, sir. Namaskara.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ರಮೇಶ್.
ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಮೂಲಿಮನಿ ಅವರು ಪರಿಚಯ ಇರಬೇಕಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ತಮಗೆ ಸರ್, ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ ವೈಸ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಲರ್ ಆಫ್ ಗುಲ್ಬರ್ಗಾ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
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 ರಮೇಶ್ ಅವರೇ,
ಸರ್
ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನೀವು ಲ್ಯಾಪ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಇದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಳ್ಸಿದಿರಿ ವಾಟ್ಸಾಪ್. ಅದು ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡುದು ಹೇಗೆ? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಈಗ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಸರ್? ಈಗ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ
ರಮೇಶ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್.
ಲ್ಯಾಪ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೆಟರ್ ನೋಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ.
ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ ಸರ್.
ಈ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸಣ್ಣದಾಗ್ತದಲ್ಲ.
I will send mail, sir, now in a minute.
ಕಳಿಸಿ, ಕಳಿಸ್ರಿ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್. ಎರಡು ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಬನ್ನಿ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ಸರಿ ಸರ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು
ಪ್ಲೀಸ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ಆರಾಮಿರ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್. ಗುಡ್ಡಿ ಇದ್ದಿ ನಂದು.
ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ.
Sir, you can start, sir.
Okay. Friends, I don't know where you are, but wherever you are, I hope you will be able to hear me. It is my great pleasure to be with you for this hour, and I thank KSTA for inviting me to give this talk. This talk is a little...
I welcome you formally, then you can start, sir.
Oh, all right, if you want, yes. That's not necessary. The talk will be the introduction. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. ಜೊತೆ ಇಂದು ಹೆಸರಾಂತ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ MRN ಮೂರ್ತಿ ಸರ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೈನ್ಸ್. ಇವತ್ತು ವಿಶೇಷ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ ನೀಡಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಯ ಮಾನ್ಯ ಸದಸ್ಯರಾದ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ BG ಮೂಲಿಮನಿ ಸರ್, ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ ವೈಸ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಲರ್ ಆಫ್ ಗುಲ್ಬರ್ಗಾ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ, ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ SK ಸೈದಾಪುರ್ ಸರ್, ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ ವೈಸ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಲರ್ ಆಫ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ. ಇಬ್ಬರು ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈಗ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ಗಳಿಂದ ಹಲವಾರು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಸಿಸ್ಕೋ ವೆಬ್ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿ ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಸ್ವಾಗತ, ಸುಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಈಗ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೊದಲು ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಮೂರ್ತಿ ಸರ್ ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಅಚೀವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ most of the young students will be inspired by Sir's achievements. Professor MRN Murthy was born in a small village of Muttur, situated in the Shivamogga district of Karnataka state. Professor Murthy has intimate knowledge of Indian rural traditions and customs. Professor Murthy, along with Professor M. Vijayan, established X-ray diffraction facility at Molecular Biophysics Unit, which served as the national nucleus for crystallographic work in the initial decade of such structural work in India. Also in 1980s and 90s, computational facilities available at the Institute of Science were inadequate for even protein crystallography, and successful execution of structural studies of viruses was unimaginable. Professor Murthy developed methods for structure determination and analysis of viruses that were computationally efficient and less demanding of resources, writing several programs and adopting a number of other available programs to smaller computing machines. Professor Murthy sir has shown deep commitment to science education in the state of Karnataka. His interest has been facilitated by his intimate knowledge of state language, that's Kannada. Sir can speak both in English and Kannada very fluently. He has been associated with the Department of Science and Technology and its autonomous organizations like Karnataka Science and Technology Academy, Karnataka Rajya Vijnana Parishad, and Karnataka Council for Science and Technology Academy. Sir has delivered many distinguished talks for our department. He has written many books on biotechnology, especially in Kannada. He has written a book on biotechnology. Kannada Pustaka Pradhikara has published a popular book on biotechnology written by Mr. Murthy sir. He has received many awards. It is difficult to name all. I will just name a few. He was adjunct professor at Purdue University, USA from 1892. He is the elected member of Indian Academy of Sciences. Then he is the recipient of highest award in science, Shanti Swarap Award, Bhatnagar Award prize was awarded to him in 1993. He is an elected member of Indian National Science Academy, and he is also a recipient of many awards, fellowships, and he is also a UGC Hari Om Ashram Trust awardee in 2004, Jagdish Chandra Bose Award for Life Sciences in 2006, GN Ramchandra Gold Medal for Excellence in Biological Sciences in 2009. After that, I have not got any information. Probably I should have taken your recent biodata to highlight on that, sir. With this very brief background, on behalf of all the participants, I wholeheartedly welcome you to deliver your distinguished. Over to you, sir.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀರೋ ನನಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ರು ನಾನು ಹೇಳೋದು ತಿಳ್ಕೊತೀನಿ. ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ KSTA ಪದಾಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಇವತ್ತು ಈ ಆಹ್ವಾನ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಈ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಆಹ್ವಾನಿಸಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅನೇಕ ವಂದನೆಗಳು. ನಾನು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಈ ಬಯಾಲಜಿ ಒಳಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಣಿ ಸಸ್ಯಗಳ ಆಕಾರ ಮತ್ತು ವರ್ತನೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಹೊಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೆ ಅಂತ, ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ವಿಕಾಸಕ್ಕೂ ಯಾವ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಅಂತ. ಈ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದಲ್ಲಿ ಅತಿ ಆಶ್ಚರ್ಯಕರವಾದ ವಸ್ತು ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಇಡೀ ವಿಶ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಸ್ಮಾಸ್, ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಕಾಸ್ಮಾಸ್, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ವಂಡರ್ಫುಲ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಹೋಲ್ ಕಾಸ್ಮಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ವಿತೌಟ್ ಡೌಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಬ್ರೈನ್. ಈಗ ಕೆಲವೇ ತಿಂಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ USA ನಾಸಾದವರು ಮಾರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಶಿಪ್ ಇಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಗಾಡಿ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಆ ಗಾಡಿ ಇಳಿದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮಾರ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಓಡಾಡಿ ಫೋಟೋ ತಕೊಂಡಿದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿನ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್ಕೇಪಿನ ಫೋಟೋ ತಕೊಂಡಿದೆ. ಮಾರ್ಸ್ ಜೀವರಹಿತ ಗ್ರಹ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜೀವರಹಿತ ಗ್ರಹ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೂ ವಿಶೇಷವಾದ ನಡೆಯೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬರೀ ಕಲ್ಲು ಮಣ್ಣು ಧೂಳು ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂತದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಹೇಗೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಳಿಸ್ದ? Is it not the greatest wonder in the universe? And that has happened because of evolution of life. The first principle of evolution of life was formulated by Darwin. Afterwards, there has been many developments in Darwinian theory. We in fact call it neo-Darwinian hypothesis. That includes animal behavior, Dr. Saidapur is here, who studies birds. So how do birds have their characteristics? The form and function of biology, that can be understood in terms of Darwinian terms. But ivattina nanna lecture is not on Darwinian theory. It is only on form and function. So we will look at some forms and see how they function and how they are made for each other. If something is very unsuitable, evolution will eliminate them. If somebody is born with a lot of defective genes, they will die. So nature has a way of correcting. So the crux of Darwin theory is in selection. See, mutations are random. Andre ಈ ಜೀವ ವಿಕಾಸ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಕುರುಡು ನಡಿಗೆ. ಒಬ್ಬ ಕುರುಡ ಯಾವ ದಿಕ್ಕು ತೋಚದೆ ಸುಮ್ನೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ. ಅವ್ನು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋಕ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದೊಂದು ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ದಿಕ್ಕಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ. That way evolution leads to random places. But if the random place happens to be ಒಂದು ಪಾತಾಳ ಬಿದ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಉಳಿಯೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅವನು. So what is retained, the selection, is the one that drives evolution. As I said, this lecture is not about evolution. I will talk about form and function. You see, actually, first thing we note, you see, man was walking long ago, millions of years ago. He was walking on 4 legs. Man means our ancestors. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ಲಕ್ಷ ಸಲ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಬಹುಶಃ ನಾವು ಆ ತಂದೆ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಅವರು 4 ಕಾಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದ್ರು. Someday he decided to get down from the tree and start walking, and that had a catastrophic or whatever amazing consequences to life. Just to illustrate what it means to walk on 2 legs, bipedal. You know, humans are bipedalists. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇವಾಗ ತಾನೇ ಹುಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಹಸು ಕರ ಇದೆ. See, within an hour it is standing up. After being born, within an hour it stands up. Within a few hours it starts running around. You know, whereas when you start walking on 2 legs, you see, here is a child trying to walk on 2 legs after it is 1 or 1.5 years old, and it can hardly walk. It falls down very often. It takes a lot of effort to learn and master the technique of walking. That is because it's so much more difficult to have your center of mass fall exactly between your legs, whereas with 4 legs it is so easy. So this is one consequence of our development. But of course, why should it be evolutionarily advantageous to walk on 2 legs? 4 legs are so much more stable. But of course, if there is no absolute advantage, then it would have been eliminated. Human race would have been eliminated. But you see, there are many things that we can observe. Look at that monkey walking on a rope. It can walk on the rope. Sometimes it tends to lose balance. You know, it wobbles to one side. Then immediately it turns its tail. ಬಾಲನ ಸರಿಯಾದ ಕಡೆ ತಿರುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು actually it balances. In fact, ನೀವು ಸೈಕಲ್ ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಕರು ಬಂದಾಗ ನಿಮ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಯಾವ ತರ ಬೆಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ you don't have to learn physics for it. Automatically your body bends in the right direction to keep balance. ಅದೇ ತರ ಮಂಗನ್ ತರ ನಡಿಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ there are some people who can do that tight rope walking. ಬಿಗಿಯಾದ ಹಗ್ಗ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. Of course, I will fall down in no time, within 2 steps. But people who have practiced it, they can walk. But when they walk, they carry a long stick, and that stick serves as the tail of the monkey. So with that stick, they can balance themselves. So you see here, our farm has decided what kind of function we can do. When we were tree dwellers, we had tile, which helped in many ways. But we lost the tile once we stopped walking on, we were living on trees. But then we have adopted other things. But the consequences of bipedalism is a lot more. You know, these days, all of you after your +2 want to perhaps do computer science and become computer engineers, you know, software engineers. That is the eternal sink which sucks up all talented students. Although science is a lot more exciting, you know, pure science is a lot more exciting. Well, you see, if you are a software engineer, you will suffer from lower back pain. Because you see, when you sit or stand, all the weight on our body falls to our backbone. And that can actually malfunction in many ways. You know, our backbone has this kind of discs. These discs can slip, and that causes excruciating pain, because inside those discs, the major nerve is running, and that can cause excruciating pain. And that is very common. You never hear of a cow feeling back pain. You see, this is very special about humans. And for people of my age, one of the big risks is to fall down and fracture your hip bone. Then you will have to sleep for 2-3 months without doing anything on the bed. It's very difficult. You don't recover very easily. You will have pain for the rest of your lifetime. So the consequence of our coming down from the tree and walking on the road made all these changes to biology. Well, there are other changes. You look at this lady doing dance. Look at the patterns of hand she can make. No animal can have that flexibility in the hand. In fact, one of the things that people often tell is that this kind of crossing of the forefinger and the thumb is possible for humans, but not possible for other animals. The flexibility of our hand and the sensitivity of our hand is immeasurable. And this is the reason why we could make spaceships and send it to Mars. It's really without hands we couldn't have done. Without hands, human achievement was not possible. And without walking on two legs, human hands would not have become so sensitive. So actually, you see, there is a tremendous advantage in walking on two legs and keeping the two hands free. Of course, for the primitive man, free hands means he was able to hunt better. But we don't hunt anymore, you see, we are civilized people. But still, hands are best. How best hands are? Let us see. You see, here is a medical doctor cutting somebody's stomach and looking at the internal parts. It's absolutely amazing. Surgery is an absolutely amazing thing. And this can be done because our hands, our fingers are so nimble. Because of our fingers are so nimble because the density of nerve endings is huge in our hands. In fact, our face also. You see, we can actually plot the density of nerves in various parts of the body. We get a very different picture of our body. If you magnify the part by the number of nerve endings in that part, our face becomes huge, our hands become extremely large, the rest of the body becomes very small. Here is a tabla player. If you watch a tabla player, you will see the wonder of human hands. When his fingers are drumming, you can hardly see his fingers. They seem to be vanishing because of the speed with which he strikes. But still, he can strike at precise intervals so that you make music. You see, the difference between noise and music is only the way noise is made periodically. So a very periodic noise becomes music. And of course, hands, the skill of the hand is so wonderful that this innocent lady is standing there waiting for a taxi or a bus. But you see, he is picking her pocket, this fellow, and she is blissfully unaware of it. Even that is only because our hands are so nimble. So it can do miracles. Human hands can do miracles. No animal has such a hand. And it is because of our hand we have conquered the whole living world. We can subdue elephants. So it's all because of our hands. Now, you see Gulliver's Travels. Some of you might have read Gulliver's Travels. He travels to two lands. First, he goes to the land of Lilliputs, and then he goes to the land of Brobdingnags. These are 60 feet men. The height of the people in that country are all 60 foot. They're 10 times larger than us. Is it possible? You see, actually, you look at a dinosaur, Brontosaurus. This is Brontosaurus. It appears, people believe that it was a herbivore. But you see, it's a very large body. But you look at the legs, they are so damn thick. In fact, if you look at elephants, you see, these are much larger than elephants. Dinosaurs were much larger than elephants. So their legs were fatter than elephants. You look at the elephant leg, it is very fat. So if you just magnify humans by a factor of 10, you see, let's say whatever you are, 5 feet, 5 inches, You make it 10 times higher, 10 times taller, 10 times wider, 10 times in all directions. So you look exactly like you are. It's a linearly enlarged image of yourself. Then you see, it turns out that once you are multiplied 10 times, your leg bones will crumble to powder and you will collapse and die. The reason is the strength of our legs depends on the cross section of our bones. See, if you cut the leg bone, what is the cross section of the bone? Cross section is related to radius of a circle, whereas the weight is proportional to the volume. See, one is proportional to area and another is proportional to volume. You take a sphere, it has a radius, and if you cut the sphere diametrically, the surface has an area, pi r square, whereas volume is 4 by 3 pi r cube. It depends on the cube of the radius. So actually the bone goes up as square of the radius, whereas the weight on the bones goes up as the cube of our size. So actually, if you multiply yourself 10 times, the bones will be twice, in area, but the weight will be 3 times, whatever, threefold more. And that weight the legs cannot stand. So we will collapse. So it's not possible. See, in other words, there's no fun in being 12-foot tall person. Then you will have all kinds of health problems. So our height is actually made up for our muscle thickness. We can be 12 feet tall, but then our leg will have to be much, much fatter. So that way, you see, the size and shape are actually made for each other. So we have complementarity there. Similarly, you see, Gulliver also visits Lilliputs. These are very small people. So they will have to stand on a huge pedestal to look at Gulliver. You see, Gulliver is an ordinary man like us. But you look at the Lilliputs, they are really, really small people. When people are small, it wouldn't hurt them if they fall from that height. You see, because air resistance will be a significant part of slowing them down. It's exactly like throwing a piece of paper. You never hear of a spider falling from the ceiling and dying because of the fall, whereas we would die if we fall from a great height. So actually, even there, see, the lifestyle depends on what kind of form the life form the animal is going to assume. The largest of the animals on our earth is the blue whale, Nili Timingila. It is so large that it's almost 30 meters long and it's damn heavy. See, if it comes to the surface of the ocean, if it comes out to the sand dune of the ocean, it cannot lift its head. It cannot turn. It hardly can move because it's so heavy and it needs so much energy to move on the land. But once it goes into the water, anything that is immersed in the water loses a weight equal to the weight of the liquid that its body has displaced. In other words, it loses a lot of weight. And since the density of the whale body is nearly that of water, essentially the whale is weightless in water. So it can move very fast. It can hunt for whatever food it has to hunt. And it is very agile in the ocean. But if it comes on the shore, it is very helpless. So actually it has developed into such a large shape, mainly because it is in the ocean. If it were in the land, the largest, perhaps, as of now, the largest animal we have is an elephant. But in the ocean, we can have 10 elephants' body in one animal. That is because of the buoyancy that we learn in our physics book. See, sometimes there are scary books where insects which are so big that they devour you. There are some Hollywood movies where you have big insects which can snatch you and carry you away. But is it really possible? See, insects do not have a blood flow. Unlike us, they don't have a heart and a flow of blood. Instead of hemoglobin, to store oxygen, their body has a molecule called hemocyanin, which is not red in color. But anyway, insects get their oxygen through diffusion through their body. ಅವ್ರ ದೇಹದಿಂದ ಒಳಗೆ ತೂರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆಕ್ಸಿಜನ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು. So if it is too big, then the oxygen cannot reach the central portion of its tissues, which means those tissues will die out of lack of oxygen. So insects cannot be very big. Whatever big insect is there in the world, that is the maximum size insects can grow. It cannot grow bigger because then its survival will be threatened. So that way, the form of the insect is locked down to its weight in which it breathes. And you have seen this kind of doll during Navratri time in all shops, toy shops, all around our Karnataka. See, there's a husband and wife team, and you can buy this doll and keep it as a exhibit in your home. And I think most homes have such dolls. And you see, the male is larger than the female. You see, this difference between male and female is very apparent in the animal world. Most of the time, the male is bigger than the female. And the male can dominate the female. If you take a pride of lions, there is a dominant male and a few females over which it lords. So there are no other males in the pack, only one male and a few females. Well, this domination of male over female, it is still there in human society, you see. Even men can tyrannize women, whereas the reverse is very rare. But this difference is becoming less and less. In fact, man and woman, they are of more or less the same size if you compare the size difference in other animals. So in most of the world, it is like that. Except, of course, there is another world, the so-called black widow. This is a fantastic example. The male comes near the female to mate with the female. It somehow manages to mate, and the moment it completes its mating, the female will catch the male and eat it up. That is why it's called black widow. The moment it is impregnated, it has no male partner. You see, the male partner is eaten up. So the male not only donates sperm to the female, but it also provides food for the growth of the eggs in the female. So this is very strange, very bizarre behavior, which you will find somewhere in the world. See, in other words, we have to wonder about how many directions evolution can take life, its forms and functions. It's really amazing diversity. The diversity of life, whether it's plant life or animal life or insect life, is so enormous in the world. It's really, really a remarkable thing that evolution has led to all these forms. In fact, as an evolutionary biologist called, it is the greatest drama on earth. You see, the greatest drama on earth is evolution. And if you cannot watch this drama, I think you have lost something very precious in your life. So we will enjoy that. See, we have a myth. Our Lord Vishnu rides on a bird. Vishnu may be, if he is as heavy as me, he may be 70 kg. But if he is a very mighty Lord, he may be several hundred kilograms. I don't know what is the weight of Vishnu. But anyway, he rides on a bird, and the bird has to carry it. If it has to carry that much weight, what kind of wings should it have? How strong wings should it have? This question is a question of flight, which actually is common question to aeroplanes as well as birds. See, if the birds are heavy, then the wings have to be very large. So birds have to be light. If it has to be light, it cannot have solid bones. It has to have hollow bones. So actually, most birds are very, very light. They're not very heavy. You see, actually, vultures, for example, have a very large span of wings. Sometimes we dream that we could, how wonderful it would be if we could fly. We can go up the Bangalore and look at Vidhan Sauda from the sky. How wonderful it is. But then if you have to have wings and carry 60 or 70 kilograms up in the sky, your wing has to be so big that no street will actually allow you to spread your wings because it will hit the opposite houses. You have to go to an open field and take off, and it will consume huge amount of energy. And how much you have to eat to produce that kind of energy. So there is a size limit to flying birds. But when a bird becomes too big, then it loses its ability to fly. There are many birds which cannot fly. And so actually, birds have a limitation in their size because they have to fly. Well, let's ignore the left-hand side. Anyway, I don't have time for that. See, there is another wonder with camels, with giraffe. See, giraffe can eat grass on the ground. It can also lift its head and eat leaves on a tree. But from this position to this position, the head goes up by 18 feet, 3 times the height of a person. Old people like me, if we get up quickly, there is not adequate supply of blood to the brain, and you get a blackout. Everything. So we should not get up quickly from either sitting position or sleeping position. That's a lesson we have learned as we age. But giraffe, you see, can actually lift its head by 14 feet and still survive. Does it not get drained out of, does its brain, how does its brain ensure supply of adequate blood? That is because its heart has to be special. So which means that it is nice to study the heart of a giraffe. How many times it beats, what is the power with which it pumps the blood, and if it doesn't pump very powerfully, it won't reach the head because it's so much up. But if it is pumping so powerfully, then the legs will get swollen because the legs will have too much blood pressure. So there has to be all these compensated. And people have studied this and have found how giraffe copes with that large difference in height. Well, of course, if you come to snakes, there are some snakes, small snakes, which are extremely poisonous. They can bite, and when they bite, something miraculous happens. When a snake bites a rat, for example, it won't actually catch the rat. It will just bite and leave it. Rat will die very soon because of the poison. Not only that, the poison has digestive juices, proteases and nucleases. They will start digesting the rat. So actually the digestion process starts outside its body. And then it swallows intact. The rat or frog, it swallows intact. Whereas if you take pythons, they are not actually poisonous. They kill their prey by entangling them and suffocating them to death. So they are not poisonous. So whether something should be poisonous or not, see, when you see a big snake, we get more afraid. We get great fear. But it is not necessarily so. Smaller snakes can be much more deadly than bigger snakes. You have to have some kind of biological knowledge or some kind of common sense or experience to know which snakes are very dangerous and which snakes are not so dangerous. So there also the function of the snake depends on its form. So if it is small, it could be poisonous. It will kill the prey. But if it is big, it can suffocate the prey. Another wonder of wonders is a frog catching an insect. If an insect is flying by frog, the frog can stretch its tongue. It can come out of its mouth to 3 times the length of the frog. It's absolutely amazing. Just think of how long you can stretch your tongue outside of your mouth. Can you stretch by 3-4 inches? I doubt very much. But this can stretch so much. And also its saliva is very sticky. So when the tip of the tongue touches the insect adheres to the tongue because of the saliva, the sticky saliva. Then it withdraws the tongue and the insect, along with that, the insect comes into the mouth of the frog. So here again, you see the form and function are very correlated. There are other things where it is not that easy to understand the relationship between form and function. See a peacock and a peahen. This is a peahen, the female. Many people, at least children, have a sense that female is very beautiful and male is not beautiful. I don't know how this concept gets in. Maybe because of newspapers or whatever it is, which always display females more than males. That is a psychology which we can analyze scientifically. But anyway, you see, the one beautiful peacock is a male. The female doesn't have all these fantastic features. Why did it develop this? This developed to attract a female. But actually, this feather is quite dangerous for the male because any hunting animal can grab it by the feathers. The feather is an extension of his body. So instead of reaching the body, if a preying animal uh, reaches its feather, it gets caught. So this is what in evolutionary terms we call sexual selection. And then this development has been there for the male to declare to the female, look at me, I have survived with all this disadvantage. So I have to be very fit. You better yield to me. It's as if the peacock is telling the she peacock. So that is one thing. Now let's take something much more mundane. I'm sure all of you have seen cows. I am sure all of you have seen tigers also, but maybe not as closely as cows. See, the eyes of the tiger are in the front. The eyes of the cow are at the side. Why is it so? Well, actually, it turns out that if you have two eyes in the front, you know, what kind of eyes do we have? Are we like cow or are we like tiger? Of course, we are like tiger. Our eyes are in the front. And when two eyes are in the front, we have a very good stereo vision. That is because the image of the external world reaching our two eyes will be slightly different. What I mean is, if you look at a window, the image of the window on our right eye will be slightly different from the image of the window on the retina of the left eye. And this difference is communicated to our brain, which can interpret it as a distance. We can guess what is the distance. If your friend is standing somewhere and you look at him and you can say he's at 10 feet from me or he's 20 feet from me. This stereo vision is possible because eyes are in the front. But of course, if the distance is very large, stereo vision will get lost. You see, if you are walking towards a hill, which is say 10 or more miles from the place where you are walking, you walk, the hill appears to be at the same place. It doesn't appear to come closer. So we lose stereo vision after a distance. How far can we see stereo vision? Well, how far should a tiger see stereo vision? It has to have stereo vision to a distance where it can locate its prey. And then it can gallop towards the prey and kill it. If there is a stereo vision beyond that, it's not going to be very helpful. But anyway, that's stereo vision. Whereas a cow doesn't have to have stereo vision because it's not going to hunt any animal. Instead, it should be able to see both front and the back. See, maybe a tiger is coming from the back. So it has to be aware of danger from the back. So this eye at the side will make it actually sensitive both to the view in the front and view in the back. So cows have eyes at the sides. In fact, all animals, plant-eating animals, will have eyes like that of cow, whereas all hunting animals will have eyes like that of tiger. Of course, because we are technologically very progressive. Without stereo vision, we wouldn't have been able to do much of our achievement. So our eyes have to be in front. If not for hunting, it helped us for hunting millions of years ago. Now it helps us to do very tricky operations because you can turn a very small screw. That wouldn't have been possible with one eye. So with two eyes and stereo vision, all that becomes possible. Well, I think I'm not sure whether I should really deal with it because I may run out of time. But let us see. See, it actually turns out I will cover this. Maybe when I come to the end of my time, I will stop wherever I sell. See, all these are little scientific episodes which are all very interesting. So in a way, if I leave out one or two of these things, it's not going to be a big loss. But unfortunately, I don't have a clock here, and my computer is locked, so it doesn't show me the time. But I request the organizers to alert me when a few minutes are left. Okay, see, it just turns out there were two medical doctors in a hospital in United States. And many people are very crazy about cats in US, much more than in our country. You see, our country people keep dogs, but cats as pets is somewhat rare. There will be cats at home in particularly villages, but they are not really pets. They are just there with them. But in America, they have lots of cats as pets. And because they can part with their wives or husbands, but they cannot part with their cats. So when they get hospitalized for any illness, they would take the cat with them. And the cat, being dumb, sometimes walks out of the window and falls down. And when it falls down, it dies, of course, if it falls down from a great height. The doctors observed all the cat fall for 2 years, and then they made a plot. And actually it turned out that the dogs which were falling from, let us say, fifth and sixth floors died less often than those which fell from, say, third and fourth floor. And of course, when they fall from higher than sixth floor, they died much more frequently. So there was a middle ground where they didn't die as much. And then actually they wondered, how is it possible? They die more when they fall from third or fourth floor, but less when they fall from fifth or sixth floor. Then they made a series of photographs of a falling cat. And then they realized the real reason. See, as the cat falls, it tends to turn around. And when it touches the ground, it has first the two of its legs touch, and then these two legs touch. But if it falls from just second or third floor, it doesn't have time to turn around. So actually it falls with its back to the concrete ground and it gets smashed and dies. But if it falls like this, it has a lot more chance of survival. You see, this is all adaptation from the time when the ancestral cats used to dwell on trees. Even now some animals like cheetah can actually climb trees very well and they can live on trees. It's not only monkeys, but there are some animals, hunting animals, which dwell very easily on trees. And the adaptation from those times has made this wonderful thing. And another thing which we notice, you see, this is to say that in evolution, same thing can be discovered more than once. See, we can ask, you see, well, let's ask the question, how did we get our eyes? We got our eyes from our ancestral, uh, you know, old world monkeys. And how did they get, like that it goes back. We finally got our eyes from mice. The eyes of the mice, as it evolved, has become eyes of the human beings. This is divergent evolution, we call it. Of course, our eyes are not the same as eyes of a mice, but it is derived from our ancestral uh, some small animal. But it's a divergent evolution. But is it possible that eyes can evolve in two different animals independently? If that happens, we call it convergent evolution. I'll give you some example of this. So one of the macroscopic example, here is an insect. Look at the pattern on its body. And here is a zebra. Look at the pattern on its body. There is so much resemblance for the same purpose, to escape predation. And this definitely, this is not evolved from that. The pattern has not evolved from that. It is a pattern which has independently developed in two lineages. This is what we call convergent evolution, convergence to the same feature. And this also we can study many examples in various fields of biology. Now let me just talk. I have been talking about animals for a long time, but let me actually talk about plants. You see, if you look at plants, these are these are plants which you will see anywhere. You just go outside your village or town, you will see many plants like that. What is so fantastic about these plants is the symmetrical arrangement of their branches. See, most of the trees are symmetrical. Why should they be so? Mainly because, you see, the chances that they will be toppled by strong winds will be minimal if they have symmetrical organization. The weight is distributed such that all the weight comes on the central stem, large stem. So actually, particularly, you see mango trees, you see, they look so beautiful and symmetrical. But it is not only in the overall structure of the tree, but you look at the arrangement of leaves, absolutely fascinating. The leaves are on opposite sides of the stem, and the leaves don't overlap. You see the leaf, there is a small gap here, because if sunlight falls, if the leaves overlap, then the other leaf does not get sunlight. So it won't do photosynthesis, and it will not be efficient. See, photosynthesis is the energy harvesting place. So it has to expose as much of its leaf as possible to the sunlight, and that it achieves by an arrangement like this. Well, this arrangement has many more biological implications, but I don't have time to go into all of that. See, there is a difference between organization here and organization here. If you go out, you will see many plants. This is all a photograph from Indian Institute of Science garden. See, there's a leaf here. There is one more leaf here, and there is a leaf in between. See here, the two leaves are right and left, right and left, right and left. You see, all the time the two leaves are coming right and left. But here you see, this is right, this is left, this is left, this is left. What is on the right is midway between the left. See, there is a difference in the arrangement. Why did this plant choose like this? Why did this plant choose like this? There are two ways of harvesting solar light. One is not better than the other. And this plant has gone this way, other plant has gone the other way. And you see there are other plants where you can see fantastic arrangement. See, this lowest leaf is up and down. The leaf on the next level is right and left. Then the leaf that is just emerging above that is again up and down. So you see, and below this, the leaf is this way. So they are exactly perpendicular. And this kind of placement, you will see many. You see there's a triangular pattern. You will find many of these patterns in plants, all of it made to harmonize with photosynthesis. So it's a fascinating study of patterns in our plant organization of leaves. It would be very wonderful to do that. But why would it? What is the other advantage of it? I will just illustrate it by a simple example. Look at Taj Mahal. You see, if you section the Taj Mahal at the center, the left is exactly the same as right. So the engineer who designed Taj Mahal had to write only the left half, and then he can just tell the workers, the laborers, that the right should be built exactly as the left. So there is economy of information, you see. You don't have to specify the whole of Taj Mahal. You do it half of it. If it is symmetrical all around, you can even be able to just specify 1/4 of the Taj Mahal and the laborers will be able to build the whole Taj Mahal. This is the brilliance of symmetrical arrangement of buildings. But that is already known to life long, long ago. You see, if you take butterfly, if you draw a line along this lateral line, and the left and right half are exactly identical, which means genetic information in the insect need not be, it can be just half of it. It has instructions to see, construct how to make the left half, and another instructions to say repeat it on the right half. So that way it can actually lead to economy in genetic information. Whether such economy is used in genetic information or not has to be biologically tested. But at least theoretically, it is possible. Well, that kind of symmetrical organization, here there are only two parts which are identical. But there are life where more parts are identical. Look at the starfish. It can be divided into 5 fingers, and each finger is exactly the same. You see, there is a knot here on each of those fingers. That also is repeated. You say any feature, it is repeated, which means if the starfish genome has information on the construction of one finger and an additional instruction that this information should be repeated 4 times over, then the whole genetic information is over. So that way it can save 4/5 of the genetic information. And you will see the same thing in flowers. You see many, many flowers. Our Mysore is very famous for jasmine, Mysuru Mallige, and that has 5 petals. So 5-fold symmetry is very, very common in plant and animal kingdom. But it is not just confined to 5-fold symmetry. Take any flower and count how many fingers it has. It will be the same for other flowers. This is genetic. In the plant, it is the genetic character. It won't change from plant to plant. See the spider, how it has cast its web to catch insects. It has 8 parts. You see, it somehow knows that at every interval, it has to turn around its fiber such that there is 8-fold symmetric pattern. This nobody has taught it. It is genetic. When a spider is born, already has in it the information for making the web. But you look at this spider, it has completely different design. And of course, this is also genetic, which means a baby spider here will automatically weave its web like this, whereas a baby of this spider will weave the web like that. So these are symmetrical patterns, and you see, whenever there is symmetry, the information needed is going to be less. So I have many more examples. You see, there are proteins. This is actually a protein from a virus, hemagglutinin from influenza virus. This has 4-fold symmetry. There are 4 subunits which are symmetrically arranged. Like that, there is a 7-fold symmetry, and we know what these proteins are doing. But I feel much more fascinated about another symmetry, the so-called helical symmetry. And I am sure you have seen it, but you see, when you see it, your scientific curiosity should prompt you to examine this. This is sweet corn. Have you counted? If you go, you see, you take a corn seed. The next corn seed is not next to it, it is slightly up. The next is slightly up. The next is slightly up. So actually they are organized in a helical fashion. If you start from this and go one full round, how many corn seeds that you have? Starting from this, if you have to come above this, anyway, how many seeds are there per turn? Well, it turns out that in biology, there are many, many structures which are based on the same helical principle, except that these helices are much more perfect than the helices of corn. This is the structure of tobacco mosaic virus, the most famous virus. It is the first virus in the world which was discovered as a distinct life form. It's a rod-shaped virus, and what you see here, the yellow ones, are the protein subunits. These are organized in a helical fashion. So there are 16 and 1/3 protein subunits per turn. Don't worry about the number, but all you notice is that it has a very precise geometry. You know how much you actually turn and how much you go up. So you actually keep on turning like this. And inside this, it has an RNA molecule, which is its genome. And this RNA is also helical. And RNA is a negatively charged molecule. And if it has to be held, you have to have positive charges as the protein. And precisely at the correct positions, the positive charges, there are amino acids which are positively charged. They actually attract the nucleic acid and force it to assume the same helical form. So the elegance of this virus, the construction principle can be understood in terms of the symmetrical arrangement. See, there is another thing which is absolutely fascinating. I don't know how much of it I will be able to convey to you. See, in the 12th century, there was a guy called Fibonacci, an Italian guy, and he wrote a sequence. Now, which has come to know, we have come to call it Fibonacci. You just trade 1 and 1. That's all what you have to do. Then you add 1 and 1, you get 2. Then add 1 and 2, you get 3. Add 2 and 3, you get 5. Add 3 and 5, you get 8. Add 5 and 8, you get 13. You can do up to infinity. This series has many, many wonderful properties. Unfortunately, time doesn't permit me to tell you some of the properties. Actually, if you divide one number by the previous number, you will get different answers. But as you go further and further down the series, that division of two consecutive numbers tends to a limiting value. And that value is called golden number. It's equal to 1 plus root 5 by 2. Actually, it's an amazing number. And, a rectangle where, you see, this is a golden number. This is 1, this is golden number. You see, this length is golden number, equal to golden number. It's slightly less than 2. This is 1. You take a rectangle like this, cut a square and throw it away. Then you will be left with another rectangle. It just turns out that the ratio of the length versus width will be golden ratio. So you cut a square here and throw it away. Then you will get another rectangle. Then cut a square and throw this away, you get another rectangle. You can keep throwing squares, you keep getting rectangles, which are all golden rectangles, which means the ratio of the sides will be the same golden number. And then you join all these points, you will get a spiral. Lo and behold, that is the spiral you find in many seashells. This is the spiral that you find in many animals. Does it mean that these animals know Fibonacci numbers? How did the connection come? See, there is also a Fibonacci number in this cone. So this is absolutely fascinating. Well, the last example perhaps I want to give you. See, 2,200 or 300 years ago, there was a great man called Plato in Greece. He asked himself, if you take equilateral triangles, take just equilateral triangles, some thousand of them, and you pack these equilateral triangles such that it gives you a closed volume. It should not have any gaps. It should be completely closed. He didn't prove, of course, but he demonstrated experimentally that it is possible to do it with 4 triangles. You put one triangle and put 3 triangles on the side, and you totally 4 triangles will close space. And this shape he called tetrahedron. That means 4-faced object. Then you can have 8 faces. 8 faces, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here you make a cap out of, you take a square, and each side of the square you put a triangle. When the triangles they meet at this vertex, then you get a cap with a square here. Make a similar cap here, put it on that. You will have total 8 triangles. This is called octahedron. But then you can also make, these two are easy to realize. But it's not as easy to realize. With 20 triangles, you can actually make a closed space, closed object. This is called an icosahedron. Vimshatamuki you can call, Chaturmukhi, Ashtamukhi. Akta is Ashta, actually the two words mean the same. Octahedron, Ashtamukhi. Tetrahedron, Chaturshmukhi. Icosahedron, Vimshatamuki. Vimshata is 20 triangles. You can make these. These are called Platonic solids. This was proved just 300 years ago by the great Euler, mathematician Euler. But anyway, he realized that these three are the solids. You see, actually, I have some details of. I'll skip these. For example, in every one of these, you can count the vertices and triangular faces and edges. How many edges are there? So it will be these numbers for tetrahedron. It will be these numbers for octahedron. You can do it yourself, and it will be these hydron. And Euler gave a relationship between these numbers, which of course is very valid. And you see, icosahedron is the most complex. See, you make a five-sided cap here, and a 10th triangular cylinder here, and put these two caps, you will get an icosahedron. An icosahedron has a threefold symmetry perpendicular to the face of a triangle, fivefold symmetry joining the center to a vertex, and twofold symmetry joining the center of icosahedron to center of a side. So it has 5, 3, 2 symmetry. We say it's 5, 3, 2 symmetry. This is the most complex solid that you can think of. And actually, it turns out that viruses have discovered this solid millions of years ago. See, this is this cartoon diagram of a virus. You see, this virus is exactly icosahedral. Well, it's more than just icosahedron. There is one more principle here, which is beyond the scope of this lecture. See, an icosahedron can be made with 60 units. These, what you see leaves here, are protein molecules, large protein molecules. 60 of these, see, there are 5 of these here, and there are 12 corners, vertices. 12 into 5 is 60. 60 of these leaves go to make this icosahedron. Whereas you can also make similar icosahedron with 180 of these. So this is a bigger shell. In fact, the virus for which we have determined the structure at Bangalore is a T=3 virus. How does the virus know? How do these proteins know that they need to assemble into that kind of structure? Why does this form come about? What is the mechanism? That is what we have investigated all our life. That's the one single problem with which we have worked all our life. See, actually, in principle, you can construct even larger viruses. This also has exact icosahedral symmetry. I won't be able to tell you how it is icosahedral, what makes it icosahedral. Can you see here? There is a fivefold axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a fivefold axis here. There's a fivefold axis here. All the others, there are six triangles. So you will have 12 such fivefolds and all the remaining 6 folds. This is a huge virus. And now we have found such large viruses, T=24, whatever number you take. That means the principles of icosahedron viruses have discovered long, long ago. And how did they do it? We understand the mechanism in very simple cases, but the bigger cases is still a big enigma. Well, I think I am almost coming to the end of my time. I don't know how many more minutes are left. When you get common cold, you sneeze a lot. You wonder why you have to sneeze. You have a common cold. Why do you have to sneeze? Actually, is it your, you will probably infect your friend when you sneeze. Is it what you want to do? Is it your wish? Well, it turns out that generally we think that it is virus which actually induces you to sneeze. because it wants to get out and infect others. So you see, this function of sneezing is a property of the virus and not of your property. This is what some people have called extended phenotype. You know, the property is not very apparent when you look at the virus, but actually, you see, viruses which cause diarrhea, for example, then they actually can spread through feces. So, like that, you see, a virus actually has many tricks up its sleeve to infect more and more people. Right now, all of us have suffered because of coronavirus. This infects human cells because of a protein on its surface called a spike protein. And that spike protein is very crucial for the virus to enter human epithelial cells and cause disease. And of course, if you know all these details, you can actually devise drugs against these diseases. So that way, you see, now biology has progressed to that extent that we can do rational drug design. And in fact, a company has designed a drug and that is about to be released in the market, apart from vaccines. Let me ask my host, how much time I am left?
ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್ 5-10 minutes.
Huh?
ಒಂದು 5-10 ನಿಮಿಷ.
Shall I continue?
Yes,
All
please.
right. Okay, you see, actually, this kind of organization of structures and function is, we can see even in the molecular world of our cells. See, if you take any cell and look inside the cell, there are virtually tens of thousands of molecules. Any living cell has tens of thousands of molecules. What are the shapes of these molecules? What are the functions of these molecules? You know, form of the molecule and function of the molecule. The same questions we could ask about animals, we could ask about our molecules in our body. See, there is a structure which is found quite in many proteins. See, there is a helix, and there is, you know, of course, proteins are polypeptide chains. I hope in +2 you have learned a little bit about proteins. You know, they are linear chains of amino acids. They are polypeptide chains. They are polymers. And this polymer has a helical structure. You know, the polypeptide actually takes a helical form. Then there is a turn, and then again a helical form. And between these two helices, a calcium is bound. And whenever our cell has to bind calcium, it tends to use this kind of what we can call motif. So you use the same trick to do the same function. And I have shown some of the motifs that are found very often in proteins. You know, if you look at protein structure or the form of the protein, you will find many times a Greek key in which the polypeptide goes up, comes down, goes up, and comes down. But this is more complicated. And you see, these are different motifs and they are used for different purposes. That means form often informs us what the protein might do. For example, this motif here, this form of the protein, you know, there are small nucleotides in our cells. There are many, many very important nucleotides. They achieve very key functions such as oxidation, reduction reactions. See, in our cell, we need to oxidize many molecules. We want to reduce many molecules. You know, addition of hydrogen or take away hydrogen atom or a proton. Such reactions are catalyzed by proteins using a so-called cofactor. Cofactor is like a vitamin. And you know, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. These are dinucleotides. That means the two nucleic acid molecules covalently bonded. No, FAD, flavin adenine dinucleotide. These are the cofactors used. And proteins have to bind to these cofactors. And this form of the protein is actually very suitable to bind those cofactors. So the function of this is to bind dinucleotides. Like that, we can assign functions to specific protein folds, which means we understand proteins and how they function in molecular detail. You know, it's a big field, but I have given you just a bird's eye view of this. You will definitely learn much more. When a protein is very large, it makes a very clever decision. Its form assumes a fold in space which is very compact. Then it meanders and folds again. So there are two domains, we say. The protein is made up of two domains. And these domains have distinct functions. This domain has one function. This domain has another function. This is a very, very well-known enzyme called threonine deaminase. See, if you take any BSc textbook on biochemistry, you will see this protein and what it does in great detail. This protein is the first protein for which the so-called feedback mechanism was illustrated. Feedback mechanism is, you see, nowadays because of lack of chips, cars are not being sold. Cars cannot be manufactured. You can make the car, but it cannot be made final. The chip is needed to complete the car. And if you have to stop the manufacture of car, you will have to stop it at the very first step. You don't want to make all the parts and only not assemble it. It will be a waste. This is what, in other words, if cars are too many, you have to stop manufacture at the very first step. And that is the trick our cells use. If there is a molecule, plenty of it in our cell, then the synthesis of that molecule is stopped right at the beginning of its synthesis, synthetic pathway. This was the first enzyme to show such properties. Well, I actually want to I have exceeded, I know, 10 minutes, but I just want to tell you the form of our genetic material, which is DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. We have 3 billion bases making our genome. That means 3 billion letters. Our life history is written in 3 billion letters. You know, these 3 billion letters make us human. You know, if these letters were different, we would have been a monkey or a tiger. So the whole difference between one animal and another animal is essentially resides in the genome of these. And what is the form of this genome and how does it function? This is what we call the whole of modern molecular biology. And that I am going to skip some of these. See, these are very, very fantastic examples, but I don't have really time. I have already exceeded 15 minutes. I'm sorry for that. But anyway, in conclusion, I want to say that in biology, starting from the shapes of animals to the shapes of molecules inside the cell, it is intimately connected, its function. And what is this relationship between form and function, or structure-function relationship, we call it. It's a very major subject of study, and I hope some of you will have the interest to take up these studies and become and contribute very richly to these scientific disciplines. Thank you very much for your attention. It has been my great pleasure and privilege to share this hour with you. Thank you.
Very grateful to you, sir, for this very wonderful scholarly talk on forms and biology. Our students will be highly benefited by your talk. In fact, I also have been benefited by your talk. Some of the things I had forgotten. Your talk has enlightened all of us. Now, may I request our honorable KSTA members for their words. Mulimani sir. Sir Mulimani sir.
Yes. Professor Murthy, it was a wonderful talk. Really, it has created, I'm sure it might have created a lot of interest in students for taking the interest in science. It is, beautifully we have illustrated symmetry, how it is related to beauty, aesthetic beauty, intellectual beauty, and ultimately you have taken it to the molecular level. This form and functions, very, very beautiful lectures with greater things. I am sure students, might have been wondering at the beauty of the whole talk. And I'm sure they will go in for this kind of study. Biology is becoming more and more important. Somehow, also students might have really understood nature is mathematically designed. I am reminded of a mathematician, the greatest mathematician, contemporary of Einstein, Poincare. He said, a scientist doesn't study nature because it is useful to do so. He studies it because he takes interest in it. He takes interest in it because it is beautiful. If it were not beautiful, it would not be worth knowing. Life would not be worth living. Beauty is the conformity of parts to one another. That you have illustrated very beautifully. One of the best talks. I am sure students might have enjoyed, and they will definitely you have made them to move in this direction. Thank you very much. I learned a lot. Wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
grateful. Grateful, sir.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, sir. Professor Saidapur, sir.
Oh, well, all I can say is I greatly enjoyed the talk. It's always pleasure to listen to Professor Murthy. I listened to him earlier also. He's the most popular speaker. And of course, since I'm interested in evolutionary biology myself, I was very, very happy to hear his views on that. Yes, greatly enjoyed. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Murthy.
Thank you.
Professor Nagesh Hegde, sir. Nagesh Hegde, sir.
ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು. I also greatly enjoyed. My little question, Dr. Murthy, is that he spoke about in the animal kingdom, the female is rather the male is much more beautiful than the female. Why has it reversed in the human kind? Can you do
See,
some kind of,
beauty,
is it a cultural one?
beauty has no meaning. It's a human concept.
Yes. Yes. No. Is it again a male dominated thing? Look, what we see is much more beautiful than what you see.
Well,
Can I add to Professor Murthy's explanation?
you go ahead.
Well, it actually in the most animal kingdom, there is what we call male selection by the females. Females actually choose the males on certain criteria. That is called sexual selection. And that is another story of evolution. And therefore, males tend to be robust and ornamented, like the peacock, or even in other male animals, you have horns and all those things. That's one thing. The second thing is some of these are some of the ornaments may be for fighting male fight, etc. So basically, to make the whole story short, it is female selection of male has forced males in the animal world to become physically more strong, and by looks also they need to be more attractive. But in humans, that kind of female selection is of the male is not there as far as the looks are concerned. But as far as wealth is concerned, there may be some kind of selection. For the richest man, ugliest in looks can marry a most beautiful girl. The reverse does not happen. So this is a human story is different. This is another story by itself. Let us not talk about it. And Darwin himself has talked about sexual selection in quite detail. Thank you.
Professor Savitri Madam is there with us. Okay, sir. Thank you very much for a very informative and scintillating talk on forms and functions. It's it was very interesting, and students certainly would have got a lot of take-home messages from your talk. On behalf of KFTA and all the participants, I thank you immensely for your time and this wonderful talk. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, actually, last word I want to have. Those students who have listened to it, if you have any questions, not just regarding my talk, but your career options, what science attracts you, how you want to go in future pursuing science, please do send me an email. I flashed my email at the very beginning. Otherwise, also you can get my email from KSCA. You send me an email, I will assure you that I will answer your email. Please take advantage and communicate with me and let us get to know each other. Thank you very much.
Sir, we actually for PU students, we have to organize many more talks like this. We'll be inviting you for one more talk on career opportunities in science.
Yeah. It will always be my pleasure. No problem.
Grateful to you, sir. Professor Mulimani sir, Professor Saidapur sir, Professor Nagesh Hegde sir, thank you very much for joining us for this talk today. ನಾಳೆ ಮತ್ತಿನ ಒಂದು ಟಾಕ್ ಇದೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಉದಯಶಂಕರ್ ಪುರಾಣಿಕ್ ಅವರು ಸೈಬರ್ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಟೈಮ್ ಇದೆ, ದಯಮಾಡಿ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Murthy.
Thank you.